Hello and welcome to Totally Skewed, the podcast devoted to everything data and AI. We are looking to put the world to rights, cut through the hype, give you the opinionated view of the state of tech, and try to see if we are indeed all totally skewed. So hello and welcome back to another episode of Totally Skewed. I am Terry and I'm joined as always by my lovely co-hosts Craig and Tori.
Hello.
Hey.
And today we're going to kick off with how we always kick off with a round of what are you drinking? So Tori, what are you drinking?
I am drinking Quest for Coin,
Ooh.
which would have been cooler if this was closer to sequel bits this episode, because I could have said I planned that on purpose. But it's nice. It came in my last pack of Beer 52. You'll be pleased to know I finally cancelled my subscription. So, yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that.
Nice. You'll get freebies. You'll get, a welcome back. You think you've cancelled? Have you really cancelled? It's harder to cancel than a gym membership.
Mm-hmm.
You can't cancel Beer 52.
No.
Yeah, I had that one. It was good. It was good when I resubscribed somehow, and I have also successfully cancelled. So are we in the right meeting? Is this like a subscription cancelling counsellor?
This episode is not sponsored by Beer 52.
So yeah, I'm drinking. I think this is another Beer 52 one actually. I'm drinking a Shindy West Coast IPA from Gypsy Hill. It's quite nice. It's good. I had a really good one before that, which was Totality, a session IPA from Siren Craft Brew. It was nice and fruity. It was good.
I love Siren beers. I think Siren beers are one of the first beers that ever introduced me to sours. It was like when there were only a handful of Brewdog bars, and when Brewdog actually used to be about promoting other like brewers rather than just themselves. They had a really great one, really great Siren beer, and yeah, it was lovely. Still haven't decided what beer to have yet. I've got a handful. So we're recording this episode again, so anybody who wants to watch live, or at least the live recording, you can do on totallyskew.co.uk or .com. So I think I'm going to go for, I got Muffin Left, which I think I might have had on one before, or a cheeky craft lager, which is slightly lower percentage. I'm going to go for that. There you go. I've got a craft lager, also from Tiny Rebel.
Nice.
Yes, that's nice. I've got a selection of Tiny Rebel beers because as a team, and Tori mentioned Sequel Bits, we actually went out to the Tiny Rebel brewery and had a bit of an evening there, and we had beer tasting and food, and it was a lovely evening for about 80 of our closest friends. It was a good time. Again, all at Sequel Bits.
It was just outside Newport, wasn't it?
Indeed. Yeah. Newport, South Wales, for anybody listening, is an interesting place. Mm-hmm. If you've never been, it's an interesting place. I don't know what else to say about Newport. So what are we talking about today? On today's episode, we wanted to talk about another more machine learning focused topic. But a machine learning focused topic which is probably a lot closer to the interest and maybe closer to the hearts of a lot of data engineers as well, because I guess at the heart of the topic that we're talking about is the core of data engineering. And so today what we want to talk about is feature stores, and kind of what are the purpose of feature stores, and where have they come from, and what are they doing? So what is a feature store?
A store for features.
Wow. Well, okay, thank you very much, and that concludes
end of episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what's a feature?
So a feature is a column in your data set that you use to train a model. I think there's some argument on whether it's just a raw column or if it's a manufactured column. Some people think both. Some people think just manufactured.
Controversial.
Yeah. Yeah. So a feature store is just a nice place to keep all of your features in line and tracked. Yeah.
Why? Well, I mean, I remember I think looking at feature stores probably, I don't know, a few years ago, and I think at that time my idea of what a feature store was and what I thought they were going to be really useful for is not, I think, what actually feature stores are. And I think maybe what I wanted them to be is something quite different. So I think when I used to think about feature stores, I used to think about things like embeddings. And for anyone, I'm looking at Craig here who doesn't know what... Craig, what's an embedding?
I was trying to think of a sarcastic comment there. I don't know.
It's what you sleep in.
Oh, goodness.
No? An embedding... I don't know. Oh, maybe edit. An embedding. So when you have features, right? Think about. I always think a good example is Netflix, right? And you can use Netflix for basically any synopsis about machine learning. And one of the things that you have on Netflix, and I think we've touched on this before, right? If you go on Netflix, right, and you start browsing for, I don't know, let's say you wanted to watch some anime or something like that, right? And you started browsing for anime. You'd never watched anime before. Within about 10 minutes, it'll start recommending you other anime programs, right? Even if you haven't watched anything. And it does that all through, learning essentially what you've watched before and what you're interested in now in order to try to find something that matches what you want. And the way that it does that is through a thing basically called an embedding. And that embedding is looking at kind of basically taking every one of those films or TV episodes and plotting them in vector space. So you imagine just taking each one of them and plotting them based on things like their similarities and your kind of preferences and what genres they are and their run times and what style of animation they might be, something like this. And it comes out with an embedding. And what we do is just basically say, well, if you like, I don't know, Demon Slayer or something like that, then you might also like Attack on Titan or one of these things, right? And you just kind of chain through things that are relatively similar based on your other preferences. And that's kind of what an embedding is. And that's what I thought a lot of feature stores would be. And then I guess what the feature stores that we use are probably not like that, right? You don't store embeddings in them, you store text.
Yeah, I think the way I've always talked about the benefits of feature store is like the really common issue for data scientists and machine learning engineers is that when you're training models and you're creating models, you're taking data from typically quite clean sources, maybe like a warehouse or a data lakehouse, and you're applying your transformation logic on that and then training your model. When it comes to real-time scoring, your data just isn't in that same state. It's in a much rawer format. So you're having to create almost a completely different or a similar data pipeline, but you're replicating it for real-time scoring. And kind of the aim of feature store, the main aim of feature store, is to create your features with the same definitions to be used for both training and scoring, and kept in all one kind of neat place.
Got ya. So would you have a feature... So for any model, would you have one feature store or would you have multiple feature stores?
You'd have one feature store. So typically what I've worked with is you have one feature store for maybe an entire ML use case. Mm-hmm. I guess another huge benefit of using feature stores is you're creating these features with maybe complex logic, maybe quite simple logic, but you're creating these features to use in a model, and there's no reason why these same features can't be used in similar models or other models. And feature store keeping it all in one place with consistent definitions means that data scientists can jump in and use those features on other models without replicating the logic, making things inconsistent, having different business logic for different departments. So by not having feature stores for one model, but having it for maybe your entire ML use case, you get that benefit of being able to reuse features that other scientists have created.
I think it's a good one, right? Being able to reuse, because I think there's, we touch on skills quite a lot on this podcast and the disparity in skills across the industry in general. And when you work in a team that is very, I guess, multifunctional, and you've got very junior members of the team, you've got very senior members of the team, the real crux of making a machine learning model like good really comes down to your personal experience and your skill level in terms of being able to handle a particular value in some way. So things like embeddings and stuff like that, right? They're all things that you will eventually pick up that kind of skill in translating something further down the line, but you probably won't pick it up straight away. And I guess feature stores kind of break down the barriers to trying to do more complicated things, because you can just kind of lean on the work that one of your colleagues has done who's far more senior than you, produce a model that works pretty well, and then figure that out further down the line. So I guess either it saves you time or it potentially just makes you a very lazy machine learning developer.
Lazy is such a strong word.
Are you not a lazy developer, Craig?
Of course. You don't type things if you can copy paste. I'm lazy. I'd heard a good analogy around this where it was like a lot of developers call themselves lazy when actually they should be described as efficient. As in, I'll go out my way and I will spend 3 times the amount of time automating something so I never have to do it manually again. I loathe manual tasks.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all guilty of that. I spent about the amount of time it took me to make a script trying to find a script earlier, which converted PowerPoint presentations into PDFs. And I could have just right-clicked every single one of them and saved it as a PDF, but no. I wrote a script 2 years ago and it exists somewhere and I will find it and I will run it. I refuse to do it manually.
Exactly.
So I'm also a determined developer, determined to waste more time.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, and I it's good to be lazy, right? Because what's the point in redoing this stuff time and time again? And I definitely think, like, in all of the models that I've made over time, I've definitely done the same thing, 100 times or something like that. Especially just basic things like categorical encoding, like changing text into numbers and then doing scaling across them and all of these kind of things. Like, you just do it time and time again. And, if you look at the throughput of the average machine learning team, they're really probably not doing enough. Sorry, machine learning developers. But they're probably not doing enough, right? Because stuff takes time. There's a lot of iteration in there. There's a lot of kind of, trying to get the squeeze the best out of a model. And if we can shortcut that, sounds pretty good to me. So I guess going back to the real-time lookup, I guess that would be challenging, because when we're working in a really low latency environment, those lookups need to be incredibly fast. Like how on earth do feature stores keep up?
Interesting question, and one I will start with by answering maybe a completely different one.
Good. That's the right. Are you a consultant?
Yeah.
Oh, what are the chances?
So there are, I guess, several different types of feature store.
Right.
The really fun thing about feature store, or the thing that trips up a lot of people, is lots of people have different definitions of what a feature store is and does. And I think that causes confusion when maybe adopting it. Mm-hmm. And I've since learned the 3 different feature stores have names. I've just described them, but these are
Barry, Sheila, Graham.
So you've got literal feature stores. So these are probably the most typical ones, or the ones that you think about. So essentially just lookups. You're creating your features in advance. You're storing them in a separate location. Maybe that's in your kind of data lake where you keep all your other data. Maybe that's somewhere completely different. But the kind of idea behind it is it's a literal feature store. You're literally storing it somewhere else. And you're just basically using your features for batch and real-time scoring by doing just lookups.
Got you.
You have the physical feature store, which is pretty similar. And that's just, it's a literal feature store, but with compute. So maybe a really good example of this is probably the Databricks feature store. That you're creating your features in the same tool that you're storing your features. And then you'll be storing your features as Delta Hive tables and then using Databricks feature store to abstract on top of that. So they're probably the more common, typical ones. But the one that kind of trips up a lot of people is that there's this, oh God, I've forgotten what it's called now. Oh, virtual feature store. And this is, instead of storing the actual features that you've pre-calculated, you've stored the definition for those features. So the way this kind of links back to your question is
what was my question?
So how we do, so how we do real-time scoring with feature stores.
That's a good question. I like that one.
It's a good question. With virtual feature stores, it's possibly easier because you've stored the definition. So when it sees new data, it says, oh, this is how you calculate profit because we've defined that in the feature store. I'm just going to apply this as a function, basically. But the way your physical and literal feature stores are going to work is that you're going to have to do a lookup. And this is where stuff gets a little bit difficult because you're creating your features on batch data. Your models, your real-time models, aren't going to always be giving data that you've seen before. So there are pros and cons with your different types of feature store, but the way that your physical feature store and literal feature stores will overcome that is they have this concept of an online store, which is like a low latency version of the feature store. So you can stream from your batch offline feature store into online feature store new data for your real-time scoring models to work. Not the most sophisticated, I think, of solutions for feature stores.
I guess they're still pretty new. Like I can't think when did the feature store go into Databricks? Maybe like a year ago now?
Yeah, pretty much.
And they seem to be always improving. Who is the most dominant in feature stores? I see very related to our podcast. Is it Hopworks? Hopworks seem to do it a lot, which is like Jim Downing, is it? Where was Jim before? Neo, something like that. They always seem to be the ones that come up, but I don't know if there are any other like popular ones that you're aware of.
So you've got Feast, which is your example of a literal feature store. So it doesn't have compute, but it's basically a feature store registry that sits in Kubernetes that works with your current data stores for feature store. There's Feature Form, which I think might be an example of that virtual feature store.
Got you.
Where you can store definitions. So Feast is open source. Feature Form isn't open source. There's Tecton, which is the non-open source version of Feast. So there's quite a few that have popped up recently.
Yeah. I guess this harks back to one of the episodes where we were talking about just the crazy amount of very specific tools and the number of vendors for very specific tools. Like, there must be 50 different feature store companies.
Yeah,
I
feel like
why would you pick one over the other, and then it's
mainly down to who has the best logo, and which one sounds the coolest.
Yeah. My bet is it Uber that did one of the first ones called Michelangelo?
Yeah.
Yeah, so named after your favourite Ninja Turtle.
Absolutely. But then Feast is named after my favourite ice cream from the 90s.
It's a good ice cream.
Yeah. When was the
Is
last
that
time
not
we
the
had a
one with the
Feast?
nuts in it?
No, it was
Yeah.
the one where it's like...
It's got like solid chocolate in the middle, right?
Yeah, but chocolate made of
okay.
like water. For anybody not from the UK, go and Google Feasty ice cream. It was I don't think they make them anymore. It
The
was
most disappointing was the fruit pastels ones, where the blackcurrant was right at the top, and then the rest was just like lime.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the blackcurrant was just like a coating on top of the lime as well. So you got through that pretty quick.
It's just an analogy for feature stores, right? They sound really cool, but actually they're just lime all the way through, and that lime is just a table. It's just an Excel spreadsheet somewhere that we look up against.
It's always Excel.
It's always, yeah.
Always has been.
Absolutely. And make a feature store company that's just backed by Excel. You can't go wrong with Excel, right? So, I mean, feature stores sound pretty cool. But, I mean, like... So of everybody, Tori, you are the only person I know that has any idea what feature stores are and how they work. How do you learn about feature stores?
I'm
Where
glad
do
it's
you
not
go
just
to?
me.
I learnt about feature stores with initially the way I always learn things, which is lots of Googling.
Nice.
And lots of playing around with different feature stores. So I've worked with Feast. I have primarily worked with Databricks Feature Store. So that's kind of been my opening into feature stores.
Have you asked ChatGPT yet what it thinks about Feast?
No, but I've
Not
got a
Feast or
feeling.
feature stores.
I've got a feeling you have.
I genuinely haven't. I feel ashamed. I feel utterly ashamed coming into this that I've not used ChatGPT to generate all of my original thoughts. Oh well. Maybe next time. Although I did use ChatGPT in a training session earlier when I had no idea how to write Terraform to deploy Azure Machine Learning. I was like, I don't know, but you know who does know? ChatGPT. And sure enough, ChatGPT did know.
Did it work?
I didn't actually run it. I just looked at it and I showed
It looked
people.
plausible.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't need to know if it works. It just looks like it works. It's machine learning.
Yeah. See, ChatGPT's just gotten so smart that it's just like, just need to make it look convincing.
Mm-hmm.
Just need to say it with enough confidence, and everyone will just be like, "Oh."
Is ChatGPT also a consultant then?
Yes.
What's my new name?
ChatGPT.
That's the ticket. ChatGPT.
I'm sure there was more vulgar variations of that.
I'm not sure what you're on about. So back to feature stores. So they sound cool, but there must be a ton of limitations. I mean, you mentioned the limitation around, I guess, looking up data that it's never seen before. Are there any other limitations? I imagine
What's the catch?
You have to keep these things. It just becomes like a transactional system, I guess. You have to keep it like live and fed, otherwise
Yeah.
it's just forever going to go stale.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. So the one thing that I think feature stores are missing, and another trap that people fall into, is there's no assurance on data quality. So you could just put utter crap into your feature stores, in the same way that you can do it with your lake as well. And there's nothing to stop you from doing that. There's also, I know particularly with the Databricks feature store, it's not hugely mature with versioning just yet. So it doesn't handle schema drift massively well, which is when you want to update your features and create new features for your feature table, you're having to create brand new feature tables, which to me ruins the kind of magic that feature store gives you with data lineage.
Yeah.
As well. So, so there's that, which isn't amazing. But I think that I'm pretty confident that's something that can be fixed. And it's only not fixed because Feature Store is so new. And it's not been, I guess, hugely adopted yet.
Yeah, the data quality one's an interesting one. Yeah. I guess it's like any data quality, right? You kind of want like feature stores, maybe even with, dare I say it, like master data management, so that you can actually correct some of these things.
Yeah.
You can use a feature store for master data management.
I mean, I don't know if I'm picking this up totally wrong, but should you not have those problems fixed before it reaches that point, though?
Such a data engineer.
So it's more that, say, how you calculate a certain feature has been updated. I'll take a really simple one, like profit. Like if you update how profit is calculated, or you add a new manufactured feature to that feature table, you can't store that into the same place in Feature Store. You have to create a brand new feature table. So even though it's the same feature, just updated, because the schema has changed, you have to treat it as a completely different feature. So when you next want to update how your model reads those features, you have to switch which feature table it's reading from, which means if at some point you're looking at a model and you're reading the features it's consuming, and you look at profit, you can't see that the profit has changed in the last year, or how profit is calculated in the last year has changed. So you're kind of losing that kind of information that is, I think, quite critical with most models.
That certainly seems like one of those things where there's a disconnect between like a theoretical use case and an actual real world use case, and it's like they don't fit that scenario where they're actually going to be used in that situation, because these things they evolve all the time.
It's tricky, right? When you look at like how different any like two machine learning models the same, probably, but they're all very different, right? They're vastly different data coming into them. Every business's data is very different. I guess it kind of feels like with feature stores, like maybe they're not being as widely implemented because there are just still tons of limitations. And even if they do have cool Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle names, they're probably maybe not quite there yet. I don't know if you agree, Tori, or if I'm just...
Yeah, I think... Although the one thing I say is the really nice thing about, I guess, the adoption of Feature Store is that you can treat it quite incrementally. It's not like an all or nothing. It's not, well, all of our models need to use Feature Store now. It's one of those things that you can set up in the background, and as new models are being created or as you're updating old models, you can start adding features into Feature Store. And it's something that you can build on over time, but there's no necessity to get it up and perfect straight away, which I think is a nice thing, because it's a way to ease data scientists into a completely new process.
Nice. Anything else about feature stores that the audience should know?
I don't think so. I think, like you said, feature stores are super new, and there's a lot of companies and vendors jumping on this because it's something new. I think with time, it's going to be quite a critical part of an MLOps pipeline. I think people are going to start using feature stores, or hopefully, I hope people start using feature stores almost as data pipelines down the road. My dream is that you create features and train models and use the same features for real-time scoring with no kind of overhead in productionizing models. The dream.
The dream.
Okay, can I ask a potentially dumb data engineering question? Actually, it could just be a potentially dumb Craig question. You'd mentioned like a couple of different vendors, and some are open source and some are not. Is this something you need to use a vendor for, or could you bake your own, or is it a bit like, yeah, you could build your own car, but you wouldn't?
I mean, you could build your own, and that's pretty much what Uber did with the Michelangelo.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, if you're already using something like Databricks, then that's the perfect tool for you to use.
It's more of a why not?
Yeah. I think with things like maybe Feast, personally, I found a little bit difficult to set up, mainly because I find Kubernetes overwhelming, to say the least.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, you could. You're probably making your life more difficult if you are, though.
Like using Linux.
Yeah.
It's like anything, right? Even with machine learning, right? It's kind of always comes down to that decision: do you build it or buy it? And lots of feature stores are open source as well, so you could probably just lean on the shoulders of giants or rip them off. One or the other. Did you both know that there is I'm just looking at, I'm on featurestore.org, which is a website I've been on at least once in the past. And there is a feature store summit. There's a whole entire conference just about feature stores.
Wow. I mean, that's...
Tori's already got tickets.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would say that's pretty amazing, because I have barely managed to fill 30 minutes with Feature Store.
Wow.
Where is it? Is it in Vegas or something?
Yeah, probably. It's in someone's front room. There's at least 15 people who were interested. I think it was virtual. It looks like it's run by Opworks. But there's tons of content on this website as well. So I think anybody who wants to go and learn more about Feature Store, check out featurestore.org. And yeah, there's a ton of videos. There's actually one here which is called like, should you build it or buy it? So yeah, which kind of looks to go through a lot of the points that you've kind of mentioned, and a lot of the things that we're talking about by the look of it. So looks pretty good. I'll make sure I put a link to this in the show notes, and there's a whole load of other bits and stuff. There's meetups. Oh my goodness, this event is the second year it's run. It ran in 2021 as well. Blimmin' heck. So sorry, I'm blown away by the fact that there's a feature store summit. Again, apparently there's a tool for everything, and now there's an event for everything as well.
Yes.
But I approve, because who doesn't love events? Nice. So, we're at that segment of the show where we talk about interesting things that we've found over the last couple of weeks in data engineering, or just interesting stories around AI and stuff from the industry. So, what interesting things have we found in the last couple of weeks, team?
So I've got one that's not really kind of data AI related a little bit. Popped up on Twitter the other day, and it was a really interesting post from a security researcher.
Oh, sorry, you lost me. You said really interesting and security researcher.
No, it's good. It's good. Stay with me. So basically, this guy or his team had hacked into Bing, and they had a kind of before and after picture of saying, yes, look, if you look at best soundtracks, this is what it looked like before. And now we have went in and we've changed the results so that Hackers, the 1995 movie, has now got the best #1 soundtrack.
Which I agree with.
Is that the Sandra Bullock one?
No.
Am I thinking of a complete...
How dare you?
I'm pretty sure she's in something called Hackers.
No, she's in The Net.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
It's the
that's
guy
it.
I can't remember the name of now that was Sherlock, or the New York version of Sherlock. Oh, what's his name?
I can't remember. It's also got Angelina Jolie in it.
Yeah. He hangs out the taxi and shouts, hack the world.
Yeah, Hack the Planet.
Hack the planet, that's it. Oh. I'm ashamed of myself. Can we cut that part?
For a long time when I first started, my first route into IT was building crap websites. And especially learning HTML and CSS through MySpace. I used to always try and hide a little pi symbol in the bottom corner of any web page that I would make, because that's what she finds in the net, and that's what she clicks on, that sends her into all this thing. And I thought I was so obscure.
Brilliant.
How do you hack Bing? Do you do SQL injection, dash and?
No, interestingly, so basically they were having a look at they keep it quite vague a little bit, but basically talking about apps that are in Azure, and there's a configuration which is literally like a checkbox that talks about setting the supported account types as being multi-tenant, which when it's multi-tenant is just set to allow any user to log into these apps. So literally very, very easy to just accidentally change this to be a multi-tenant app. So through some vague scouring, they were able to configure, or they were able to find an app and just simply log in. So it begs the question whether that is actually hacking or if it's really what the legalities there are. But anyway, so they found this app called Bing Trivia, but actually when you have a look at it, it's not just trivia. It's situations where people make requests to say, yes, what's the best soundtrack? What's the best movie? And things like that. So they were able to go in and change the results and then save those results, and that's what showed up. So they did say that, yes, we did that. We reverted the changes, and then we let Microsoft know, which was nice of them. And the hole was plugged, and Microsoft fixed it all up and made sure that there was further controls in place, and gave them $40,000 for their troubles as a bug bounty, which was quite good. Which they said they've donated, but it's quite interesting that it's just such a simple thing can be there. I remember years ago, one of the things that kind of floated around. So there was a tool. I think WordPress has similar issues, or early versions of WordPress, but there was a similar content management system called .NET Nuke, which is still around, kind of open source WordPress alternative, and it had a default username and password. So
SolarWinds 123,
something like that. Yeah, it had a very specific type of URL, so you could basically just search, do a Google search for that URL part, and then look at all the websites and just try a username and password. A bit there's been a lot of things around that, around IP webcams and things having very standard usernames and passwords, or routers and stuff like that. So it's just interesting that a lot of these kind of security things they still happen. There's still these kind of gaps that pop up, but at least there's people that are checking. And
yeah, they clearly haven't been to your session about designing, security.
Do you remember? Yeah.
Will love.
I thought you were going to rhyme off the full name there. I was a bit too impressed, Terry. Designing data architectures that InfoSec will approve.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, sorry, I fell asleep halfway through trying to say it. I just couldn't do it. Oh, yeah, I mean, it's crazy, right? It's just a good thing that no one uses Bing. Because if anybody did, they'd have been in trouble.
Nobody noticed. They did this 4 years ago, and then they only just changed it back, and nobody noticed.
No.
That's me off my MVP status.
Sorry, Bing. I actually do use Bing, and I love Bing. I even have a Bing hat somewhere. So.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It's a good hat.
Well, that's us lost our last listeners.
What about any other stories? Any story, Tori?
Is it cheating if I say GPT-4 is now out? Well, 2 weeks ago it was released. I mean, we haven't done a podcast since it was. Yeah. I mean, I probably won't say much more because it's literally all you hear about at the moment. And I haven't listened back to our large language model podcast episode. and I feel like I should have prepared this to see how many of our predictions were right. The one that I remember saying that I was pretty confident that GPT-4 wasn't going to be multimodal. So I can eat my words now that it is multimodal. So
I'm pretty sure you said you would eat your hat.
A Bing
Terry's
hat.
hat. Your Bing hat.
You
Oh,
can't eat
God.
my Bing hat. I love that thing. Never. It's an antique. It's priceless, that thing.
yeah, so GPT-4.
There was, like you said, not to kind of go into a lot of detail with it, but there was a comparison, a little bit of a controversial comparison, judging by the replies that this person got. But there's a comparison that someone made to try and work out context, or like for it to work out context by saying, right, I've placed something in a box. That box is sitting on top of a chair. That chair is in the bedroom. I've moved the chair into the other room. I've picked up the box, and where is the object, basically? And I think there was a excuse me, ChatGPT 3 was basically saying, oh, it's in the bedroom because you moved the chair back to the bedroom or something. But GPT-4 was basically like, no, it's still in the kitchen because when you lift the box, the object rolls out due to gravity because you've lifted the box and the box is open, and you're just like, wow, that's like, it shows that it knows what's going on, and it's
My
got
mind's
the right
blown.
context and everything. There's a lot of people arguing that were like, well, not really, but I get what you're getting at.
What's in the box, Craig?
Yeah. Oh, I need to find it.
What's in
and
the
then-
box, Craig? What's in the box?
Not a head.
Oh, okay.
Thankfully.
Gwyneth Paltrow's head. It was Gwyneth Paltrow, wasn't it?
It was,
Instead?
yeah.
No.
Okay,
This
good.
is 7.
Yeah. it
Have you
was
seen 7?
You raised a really interesting point, though, right? Around, we won't go into the detail around ChatGPT 4. Have you tried to find any detail?
I mean, so there's not
It has deleted all the detail.
So there's not a huge amount of information on the stuff that we were speculating about like window size and the training data and how many nodes it was trained on. I don't think they've released anything about that. It's just, I open Twitter and I would say 9 out of 10 of the tweets that I read have the letters GPT in.
Yeah. Well, I find the interesting thing, and I guess just an interesting segue, is they're not going to release anything about the technical architecture of ChatGPT-4, GPT-4. They are keeping it closed source, and I don't know if you've seen recently. There's been a couple of things. So it was like yesterday or the day before. A whole ton of very prominent tech people have come out and signed this open letter to try to slow down the improvement around large language models, and they want basically it to slow down for the next 6 months. And people like Elon Musk have signed it, Andrew Ng, a whole load of other people. I think even people like Joshua Benego have signed it, which surprises me. And also, like, doesn't Elon Musk like own a massive proportion of OpenAI?
He
Isn't
didn't.
he like one of the original funders for
I
it?
think he sold it
Did he?
to Microsoft. I'm pretty sure it was passed from his hands to Microsoft.
Got you. Okay, so yeah, well maybe to me, I don't know. I mean, I part of me is concerned a little bit about this new kind of like the whole thing, right? You build this amazing new model. And the whole industry is built up around, we do something really freaking cool, we go to a conference, we make a paper about it, and we talk about it, and we show off, right? This is how it works. How cool are we that we did this thing first? But now you've got things like OpenAI, who are now closing source because they are concerned about the potential impact it has around opening it up for replication. And they're doing it from an ethical standpoint, but I mean, I'm not sure it is, right? It feels like an entirely commercial standpoint because they did ChatGPT, and then Google did whatever that thing they did, which tanked their share price, and then GPT-4 will come out, and then they would do it, and then Google would do another thing and tank their share price again. I don't know, but it feels worrying that they're keeping everything very closed. But then also, if I made it, I'd probably do the same thing, right? Because it's my IP.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? Should they make it open?
I don't know. Yeah, like the paranoid side of me that's watched Terminator, etc., says yes. But yeah, when you think about it, it's like you make something, it's going to be made for profit. So, but then I mean, look at the way Databricks did things with Delta and Spark and things like that. That feels more like a long game sort of approach to things. So
yeah, you can't turn Delta into a racist Nazi bot, though.
Challenge accepted.
Have you both seen Ex Machina, the Alex Garland film? I think it's Alex Garland.
Yep.
Don't think I have, actually.
Oh, you need to watch it with Oscar Isaacs, who is the most handsome man in the world. But aside from that, it's basically about a guy who owns a tech company, and one of the things they do is they're basically like Bing or Google and have a huge search engine, and then they build a large language model and then stick it into a robot, and the robot's sentient. But the opening of that and like what they're doing, you're like, it's quite similar.
Feels like a documentary now.
Yes. Yeah. Still, yes. So who knows, right? Where this stuff is actually gonna end up. I genuinely think that they will get to a point and they'll write the paper about it and they'll open it up. I don't know. It's an interesting one, but I can only imagine that they will do, or they don't, and they'll keep it completely closed source and they make it incredibly expensive per every single request. Stick it behind the Open AI API service and make a huge amount of money on it. So yeah,
sounds likely.
Mm-hmm. Again, that's probably what I would do. So
yes.
I can't really. Whilst it's challenging for the industry, I also get it, right? They are a commercial company, and then they are owned 49% by Microsoft. So, what are the chances? Any other interesting stories?
Nope.
Nope, and none from me. So I guess on that note, thank you very much for listening to this episode of Totally Skewed. If you like this podcast, please do remember to give us a like and leave a review on your podcast of choice. And we hope to see you on the next one. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.
We are looking to put the world to rights, cut through the hype, and give you the opinionated state of tech. Fuck that up.
Keep it in.
That's the first time you fucked up
Oh, amazing. Keep it
like
in.
the whole time we've been doing this.
Right, go again.
Yeah.